The Prime Minister under fire yesterday after a press conference. They were meant to talk about NHS reform, but they ended up talking about grooming gangs and the criticism that he's getting on that front.
Yes, responding to criticism from tech billionaire Eamonn Musk, Sir Keir Starmer defended his time as Director of Public Prosecutions before labelling calls for a national inquiry into grooming gangs as far right.
It is something about the nature of our politics, because once we lose the anchor that truth matters, in the robust debate we must have, then we're on a very slippery slope. And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
I think that's a terrible thing to say. Jumping on a bandwagon to protect children, to get justice for children, maybe. But I think he's been very controversial there. And again, it's all about me, that one. The Home Secretary, in response to all that, so she says, right, we're going to give harsher sentences to people who've been groomers, and we're going to announce a new victims and survivors panel to advise ministers. I don't know why everybody needs advice on this. It's quite obviously that, you know, a crime has occurred and is continuing to occur. And I don't know, Charlie Peters, he's the man that broke all this. He's the man which is responsible, Charlie, for the Prime Minister talking yesterday. I think he's got to forget this is not about him. This is about these children.
And that's very much the response I had from survivors yesterday morning, Eamonn and Ellie, after that press conference. A lot of anger to those statements, calling people who are engaging with those demands for a national public inquiry, an aggressive review into this issue, as jumping on the bandwagon of the far right. Well, yesterday was day 6 of this story rumbling on after we broke the news last Wednesday that the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, had denied a request from Oldham Council for a government-led review. This was Labour's opportunity to take control of the message and respond to all of the criticism that has been levelled at the party, at the government and at Keir Starmer since that news was broke on Wednesday. But I have to say that control very much slipping from them at the moment with the responses we've seen from survivors and campaigners across the country. We also had that emergency statement from the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, in the House at 5:30, another attempt to get a grip on this story with 3 new policy announcements. Not only the panel you've mentioned and the new aggravating factor of grooming for sentencing of child sexual offences, but also the introduction of mandatory reporting, which has been recommended by the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. That will make it an offence for people to not report child sexual abuse if they are aware of it in institutional settings. So the government there introducing new legislation in response to these demands, but fundamentally, Eamonn and Ellie, the lead demand that we're seeing from political opposition and a lot of campaigners right across the country is for that national public inquiry. They are saying that the ICSA report in 2022 only looked at a handful of locations across the country on this issue, and those areas did not have compelling reports of child sexual exploitation gangs, on-street grooming. They've pointed to the fact that there are well over 50 different towns and cities where this has been reported, that has been compiled by GB News, where investigations, they say, need to take place to uncover any corruption, prevention of investigation and any cover-ups that could have led to this national atrocity being ignored. But there are also further political problems for Labour on this. Last night, GB News revealed that an influential Labour group called Blue Labour, led by the Labour peer Maurice Glasman, had broken with the government's stance on this. They have demanded a national public inquiry, saying that it has to look into this issue across the country without any fear. Could we see more Labour voices add to those demands?
OK, Charlie, we're going to speak to you again throughout the morning as you raise this whole subject again, and we're going to get reaction from our viewers and listeners.
Well, let's speak now to Deputy Editor at Spiked, Fraser Myers, who joins us in the studio now. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Fraser, and I'm just listening to Charlie there. You wonder how the survivors and their families feel about all of this being politicised, and Sir Keir Starmer claiming that wanting an investigation, a national inquiry into all of this is far right.
I think Keir Starmer's comments are outrageous. I think it compounds the original failure with this grooming gang scandal. One of the reasons why these cases were not investigated, why so many women and girls were abandoned, why they were ignored, was because out of this fear, the authorities did not want to appear racist. Now we hear that it's far right to be concerned about this issue. I don't see the difference there. That we are compounding the failure once more. We cannot allow sensitivities around race or around appearing to be far right get in the way of justice for these many, many thousands of victims.
But Fraser, here's the thing. People will look at this and they'll say, well, what harm is an inquiry going to do? You looked at 5 areas. You should have looked at 50 areas. Why not give justice to the people in these areas? Really, at the end of the day, if we're doing the right thing, what harm are we doing? So who would come out of this not looking well?
Well, I think, lots of local authorities, lots of social services groups, lots of police officers, potentially also the CPS. And, Keir Starmer has defended his role at the CPS at the time. He did make some changes to make it easier for victims to come forward. But there probably still are questions to ask around there. Every part of the state was involved in this cover-up. At every level, it was believed...
So why does he not want that exposed?
I'm not sure that he doesn't want it exposed. I think he's just mishandled this. I think he's totally misjudged the mood of the nation. I think he thinks that this is a social media issue. Yeah. He's coming out swinging against Elon Musk, and to some extent, fair enough. Some of the things Elon Musk is saying is crazy, talking about, potentially the US invading the UK and liberating us from our tyrannical government. That's bonkers. But this is an issue that really touches ordinary people. People are furious about this. And I think he's completely misjudged that. I think he sees this as an issue that's of concern to far-right rabble-rousers rather than ordinary members of the public. Yeah. And so he's just misreading the public mood. I don't think that he necessarily has anything to hide here. I don't think he is complicit, as some people have been suggesting. I don't think there's a grand conspiracy. I just think Labour keep misjudging this issue.
Yeah. You think he's out of touch?
I think he's completely out of touch. I mean, to say what he said, to say that it is far right to jump on a bandwagon to call for an inquiry suggests that he is in a different world to most of us. And to not accept that there should be some criticism as well. I mean, he came out defending the safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips. Understandably, some of that criticism crosses a line, perhaps goes into threats, but we haven't seen that.
But I'm more interested in the kids that were abused rather than Jess Phillips.
Most of his answer to those questions yesterday were about protecting his own reputation, defending Jess Phillips. That's what he got most passionate about. He did talk about the kids, but you didn't really see the same level of passion as in defending his own reputation.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Elon Musk. I mean, in my view, Elon Musk is a rich Egypt. That's what he is. Why do I care what Elon Musk says? He is, as I call him, he's like a Bond villain. He's got so much money. He just sits there and strokes a cat and whatever. Who cares what Elon Musk says?
Well, that's the thing. It's, the Labour Party, when they are in government, they should not be derailed by the ramblings of a tech billionaire. He's probably tweeting right now as we speak. He's been on an absolute rampage over this issue. But they do have to recognise where there's a strength of feeling that is shared more broadly in the country. It doesn't really matter what Elon Musk says. Elon Musk is not going to...
But it matters to Keir Starmer, obviously.
It seems to have rattled him quite substantially for him to come out swinging in this way.
Yeah, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, meanwhile, trying to calm the storm. She's announcing tougher sentences for groomers, also making it mandatory for if you work with children and you are privy to sexual abuse going on, you have to report it. Is that going to be enough?
Well, I think it will do some good because one of the key problems with the grooming gangs was that these cases were reported. They were in absolutely plain sight. So many people in authority knew about them and yet ignored them. So it would be good to see those people, if that were to ever happen again, it'd be good to see those people locked up for their failures to protect children. But is it enough? I think it's not really grappling with the key issue or the key reason why this failure went on for so long, and that is to do with the sensitivities around race. And that's the thing that has to be confronted, and that's the thing that I think that Labour is most nervous about confronting.